When we talk about the Paleolithic diet, most people imagine a diet of raw meat, berries, and nuts. They picture primitive humans ferociously consuming meat and living in perfect health. However, the reality was far more complex and diverse. The Paleolithic diet was not standardized. It varied dramatically based on geography, climate, season, and available food resources. What humans ate in Africa 300,000 years ago was completely different from what they ate in Europe during an ice age or in coastal regions where seafood was abundant. To understand the Paleolithic diet, we must examine archaeological findings, skeletal remains, and observations of modern hunter-gatherer societies. The picture that emerges is one of remarkable dietary diversity and adaptation. The most common misconception is that Paleolithic humans were primarily meat eaters. Evidence suggests that plant-based foods actually provided the bulk of calories for most ancient populations. Archaeological studies examining tooth wear patterns, fossilized feces, and bone isotope ratios all point to the same conclusion. In many regions and time periods, gathered plant foods, including roots, tubers, seeds, nuts, and fruits, provided 50 to 80% of total caloric intake. This is crucial. The Paleolithic diet was fundamentally carbohydrate-rich. These carbohydrates came from wild tubers, roots, nuts, and fruits, not from grains, which humans had not yet cultivated. Acorns were particularly important. A single oak tree could produce hundreds of pounds of acorns, providing an energy-dense food that could be stored for extended periods. Archaeological evidence from the Middle East shows that people were collecting wild grains over 20,000 years before agriculture was invented. The meat component was highly variable. In some regions, hunting large game provided significant calories. However, hunting was not reliable. More consistent sources of protein came from smaller animals: fish, insects, birds, small mammals, and shellfish. Coastal communities had access to abundant seafood, which provided protein and crucial micronutrients like omega-3 fatty acids and iodine. Archaeological sites show evidence of extensive shellfish collection. Insects were also consumed regularly. Termites, grasshoppers, beetles, and other insects were significant food sources. A single termite mound contains as much protein as a small rabbit, and insects are rich in micronutrients. Seasonal variation was paramount. Ancient humans did not eat the same foods year-round. Spring brought fresh green plants, bird eggs, and newly born animals. Summer offered ripe fruits, berries, and insects. Autumn was for collecting nuts and seeds for storage. Winter, the most challenging season, relied on stored foods, dried fruits, nuts, seeds, and preserved meat. This adaptation to seasonal availability was key to Paleolithic survival. The nutritional quality was remarkable. Foods were whole, unprocessed, and nutrient-dense. Vegetables and fruits retained all their fiber. Meat was consumed entirely: muscle, organs, bone marrow, and connective tissue. Organ meats like liver are extraordinarily nutrient-rich. This meant Paleolithic humans consumed much higher levels of vitamins and minerals than modern humans. The absence of refined foods prevented blood sugar dysregulation. Fiber content was very high from roots, tubers, nuts, and seeds, profoundly affecting gut health and microbiome composition. However, the Paleolithic diet was not perfect. Paleolithic humans suffered from malnutrition, particularly during scarce seasons. Evidence of nutritional stress appears in skeletal remains. Many died from infections, injuries, and childbirth complications. Infant mortality was extraordinarily high. Those who survived to adulthood often lived into their 60s or 70s. Dental disease was common despite the absence of refined sugars. Traumatic injuries from hunting and violence were frequent. Parasitic infections were widespread, particularly in warmer climates. Regional variation was significant. Mediterranean regions consumed shellfish, nuts, and seasonal fruits and vegetables. The Middle East had wild grains, legumes, and hunted game. Tropical regions relied on fruits, nuts, roots, and tubers. Arctic regions necessarily consumed more meat and fat from hunting and marine mammals. These diets reflect evolutionary adaptation to available resources. The modern paleo diet movement attempts to recreate the Paleolithic diet but faces limitations. Foods available today are not identical to ancient foods. Modern beef comes from domesticated cattle, selectively bred for thousands of years. Commercial salmon is often farmed. Modern vegetables result from selective breeding, producing larger specimens than wild ancestors. Modern paleodieters do not have access to exact Paleolithic foods like acorns, wild game, and insects, which are largely absent from modern paleo diets. What we can conclude is that the Paleolithic diet was characterized by several key features. It consisted of whole, unprocessed foods. It was rich in vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. It included meat and animal products in varying amounts. It was high in fiber. It was free from refined foods and sugars, and it was adapted to specific regional food environments. Paleolithic humans ate what was available and used sophisticated knowledge to identify, process, and store foods. They developed technologies to improve digestibility and preserve foods for scarcity. They understood their environment deeply and used that knowledge to survive. The principle of eating whole, unprocessed foods adapted to your local environment remains valuable today, though we should avoid attempting to recreate the exact ancient diet. Understanding what Paleolithic humans actually ate provides insights into optimal nutrition, but human dietary flexibility and adaptability were key to our species' success. We thrived on diverse diets in different environments, and this flexibility should inform modern nutrition choices.